Hi there. My name is Tercy, and I want to welcome you to the Unreasonably Grateful podcast, Living in Grace by Choice. And every week, I spend some time saying, thank you. Thank you for being a part of my journey. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of yours during this kind of digital era. This is one of the ways that we can stay connected and actually connect with people all over the world. And I started it several years ago. Some of you have been with me for a long time now. Others of you listen in periodically, and some of you may be brand new. And wherever you are and however you found this, welcome. And I'm grateful that you're here. And you just want to trust that there's something tonight that's going to be shared that's going to impact you or make a difference for you and move you further along on your own path of awakening. And, for me, I use the word recovery. Recovery works great, especially if you're someone who's dealt with an addictive lifestyle or maybe is still struggling or, you can recover from so many things. We kind of relate it to drugs or alcohol, but, there are people who have to recover from, they have to run every single day. And if they don't, they have a meltdown or they can only eat certain things or uh, they end up in relationships that aren't healthy or they have kind of serial breakups or I don't know, any number of things, right, that can go on through life. However, one way of looking at it is we're awakening. We're awakening to who we really are, who were we created and designed to be, and why are we here and what are we up to and how can we have our life have meaning? Um, yeah, how can we? I was teaching a class this week, and it's like, how can we keep our vessel empty so that we can be filled with love to overflowing? That's the ongoing work. We're awakening to the possibility of being more loving, letting more love in, letting more love out. So, yeah, I share stories, tidbits of wisdom that I've gleaned over my 39-year journey of awakening or recovering. I dealt with abuse as a teenager and then 20 years of living with an eating disorder. And this is my now 39th year of recovery. So, I keep it under, 7 minutes, 8 minutes. Sometimes it's 5 or 6. And it's just little tidbits of day to day wisdom that gives us something to realign ourselves with or look forward to or guide us along on our journey. And it's my hope that you hear something tonight that does that for you or today, whenever you happen to be listening. So, yeah, thank you for being here. Reminder, I don't have your answers. I believe that you do. And sometimes the clues lead us to our own answers. And I'm grateful for that. I also do individual sittings on Tuesdays where really what happens is you dial into a Zoom call and I sit and listen. And then I repeat back or share with you what I hear and what I see. And again, experience has told me that it's always some version of you that's brighter and more optimistic and more positive or possibility for you than perhaps the vision you have for yourself. And if that's something that you'd enjoy or you'd interested in, you can sign up at tercyenglehart.com under the topic Work Together. Okay. And also join my mailing list if you want. I do a monthly inspirational newsletter and share it with other people that you think might be able to benefit. All right, this particular episode comes from several meetings I've had, and it says, answer the hardest question first. So I've had a couple of different interactions with people, sessions, and I'm hearing people say, I'm confused, I'm overwhelmed, it's too much. And I'm hearing that in lots of different formats. And usually when I hear that, what comes up for me is you're trying to answer too many things at once. That's the confusion. It's like there's layers and things are on top of one another, and you kind of have to pull them apart first to get to what needs to be addressed first. And there's usually my experience is there's usually one primary core question, perhaps is the hardest one to answer, and you or I may be avoiding answering it or even looking at it, and we're trying to answer other questions that would come after that, and that creates the confusion. And so this week, what I'd love for you to do is see if you can identify what's your hardest question. So, at a time when you feel confused or disappointed or upset or overwhelmed or exhausted or anxious, look and see what's the hardest question that you're facing and see if you can't answer that one first. Now, let me give you an example. So, for example, in relationship, I've had a couple of appointments this week. I have one tomorrow, and it's all around relationship. And one of the things that happens, I think, is people are struggling in their relationships and they're trying to make decisions about some future. But at some level, the core question that hasn't been answered yet is, am I committed to being in this relationship first and foremost? Like, that has to be first. You can't be looking at other possible questions that you have or choices that you need to make if you haven't first answered that question. In other words, are you committed to working through this together? Are you willing to stick in and stick through it first and foremost? Do you have all of me? Am I all in? And I think that's a difficult question for people to answer when they're struggling. But oftentimes the struggles are the result of not having answered that question for yourself. And so that's just an example. So I just want you this week to look at what is the question, the hardest question for you to ask yourself and answer. And that's the question you want to ask yourself and answer first. And I'd love to hear what those questions are. And you want to synthesize them down to a pretty straightforward question. There won't be a lot of story attached to it. And if you would, I'd love for you to just send me the question. And you could email that to Tirsi@TirsiEngelhardt.com. And I'd just like to look at what's the type of question that we collectively are actually struggling or avoiding asking ourselves and thus answering as well. And what I want to share with you is that once you identify what that question is, if you do the work, answer that for yourself, you'll experience less confusion, less chaos, less overwhelm, less anxiety, because the other questions that come after that will now be more readily you'll be more readily able to answer them because you've answered whatever that most difficult or hardest question is first. Okay? So take that on this week. Send me your questions. You don't have to give me a story. Just email me the question. You don't have to sign your name to it or anything if you don't want to. And have a beautiful week. And remember to celebrate your victories. I was thinking about that recently. I think I said something on my Instagram story. It's so easy to focus on what's not working or where we're failing, but it's important that you recognize and celebrate your victories every single day, no matter how small or how big they are. So make sure you do that this week too. And I look forward to seeing you next week, and I'll be right here. And I'm counting on seeing you too.